When will China's economy surpass America's? It's a question on everyone's mind, a topic that sparks endless debate. For years, the narrative seemed set in stone. China's rapid growth meant it was only a matter of time. Projections were made, dates were circled on calendars. But recently, the story has gotten a lot more complicated. Let's dive in and unpack what's really going on. First, let's understand how we even measure this. The most common metric is gross domestic product, or GDP. But even here, there's a catch. Do we use nominal GDP, which is based on current market exchange rates, or do we use purchasing power parity, or PPP, which adjusts for differences in the cost of living? If you look at PPP, some organizations like the IMF would say China already surpassed the US back in 2014. That is, because $1 in China can buy more goods and services than $1 in the US. However, when most people talk about the biggest economy, they're usually referring to nominal GDP. By that measure, the US is still comfortably in the lead. For a long time, the math seemed simple. China's economy was growing at a blistering pace, often in the double digits, while the US economy grew more slowly. If you just extended those trend lines, China's overtaking of the US seemed inevitable. Goldman Sachs, for example, once predicted it would happen by 2027. Others pointed to the early 2030s. The idea was that China's massive population, rapid industrialization, and state-led investment would power it past the finish line. But then, things started to change. The global pandemic hit, supply chains were disrupted, and economies everywhere took a hit. China's strict zero-COVID policy, while initially effective in containing the virus, eventually put a major strain on its economic activity. Lockdowns in major cities like Shanghai brought production to a standstill and dampened consumer spending. At the same time, the United States was experiencing its own set of challenges, like high inflation, but its economy proved surprisingly resilient. The US government unleashed massive stimulus packages, and the Federal Reserve began aggressively raising interest rates to cool things down. While painful, these measures helped stabilize the economy. American consumers kept spending, and the job market remained strong. As a result, the US economy actually started to pull away from China again in nominal terms. This brings us to the core challenges facing China today. The first is a major property crisis. Real estate has been a huge engine of China's growth for decades, accounting for a massive chunk of its GDP. Companies like Evergrande and Country Garden took on enormous debt to build vast residential complexes. But now, the market is oversaturated. Prices are falling, and these developers are struggling to pay back their loans. This has a ripple effect, shaking consumer confidence and impacting industries from construction to finance. Many ordinary Chinese citizens have their life savings tied up in real estate, so when the market falters, people feel less wealthy and are less willing to spend. The second major headwind is demographics. For decades, China benefited from a demographic dividend, a large, young workforce that powered its factories. But due to the one-child policy, which was in place for over 35 years, that trend is reversed. China's population is now aging rapidly and has even started to shrink for the first time in decades. A smaller, older workforce means less labor, higher wage pressures, and a greater burden on social services like pensions and healthcare. This is a long-term structural problem that is very difficult to solve. Third, there's the issue of debt, particularly at the local government level. To fuel growth, local governments in China borrowed heavily to fund infrastructure projects building bridges, roads, and high-speed rail. While this created jobs and modernized the country, it also left many municipalities with mountains of debt that are becoming increasingly difficult to service, especially as the property market, a key source of their revenue, cools down. And finally, we can't ignore the geopolitical tensions. The ongoing trade and tech rivalry with the United States has led to tariffs and restrictions on key technologies, like advanced semiconductors. This is aimed at slowing China's technological progress and has forced Chinese companies to scramble to develop their own domestic alternatives. This de-risking or decoupling by Western countries means China may face a less favorable global environment for its exports and technological ambitions. So, Where does this leave us? The timeline for China surpassing the US has been pushed back significantly. So many analysts who once predicted it would happen in the late 2020s now say it might not happen until the 2040s or even later. The Japan Center for Economic Research, for example, recently stated it may not happen at all this century. The narrative has shifted from when to if. However, it would be a huge mistake to write off China's economy. It is still an economic superpower. It's the world's factory, a leader in renewable energy and electric vehicles, and it's making huge strides in areas like artificial intelligence and digital payments. The Chinese government is also actively trying to address its problems. They are working to stabilize the property market, stimulate domestic consumption, and push for greater technological self-reliance. The goal is to shift from an economy based on investment and exports to one driven by domestic consumer spending and high-tech innovation. Meanwhile, the US has its own set of challenges: high government debt, political polarization, and infrastructure that needs upgrading are all serious concerns. But the US also has incredible strengths: a dynamic and innovative private sector, the world's top research universities, and the dollar's status as the global reserve currency. Its economy has a proven ability to reinvent itself. So, what's the final verdict? The idea of a simple, inevitable crossover where China's GDP overtakes America's is looking less and less likely in the near future. The easy phase of China's growth is over. It now faces the much harder task of transitioning to a more advanced, consumption-driven economy while navigating some serious structural headwinds. The US, for all its problems, remains incredibly resilient and innovative. Instead of a simple horse race, it's more productive to think of this as a long-term competition between two very different economic models. The future will likely be defined not by one country definitively surpassing the other, but by a complex interplay of competition and cooperation between the world's two largest economies. The race is much tighter and the outcome far less certain than we thought just a few years ago. The next decade will be crucial in determining whether China can overcome its challenges and re-accelerate its catch-up, or if the US will maintain its economic lead for the foreseeable future. What do you think? Will China eventually become number one? Or has its moment passed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this analysis interesting, please consider liking and subscribing for more content.